the Batman Universe Comic Podcast. Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
Hi, this is Denny O'Neil.
My name is Neil Adams.
This is Paul Dini.
Hi, my name's Dan DiDio.
This is Kevin Conroy.
Hey, this is Francis Maniple.
Hi, this is Jim Lee, and you're listening to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast, episode number 237. I am your host, Dustin, and today I have with me...
This is Ed.
And this is Nadine Ross.
And we are bringing the latest comic news and comic book reviews from the weeks of December 3rd through December 16th. We have a total of 2 books to cover, a little bit of news, a little bit of listener comments, and then I completely forgot about last episode, and I told myself I definitely need to make sure that I talk about this episode. So if for some reason I'm wrapping up the episode and I forget, please one of you remind me. I need to explain the details for the holiday giveaway that I had promised that I was going to go on and on about over the last couple episodes.
I see.
And I kept forgetting, and now we're literally the last episode before the holidays. So I will definitely do that after we do our comic reviews. So anyway, let's jump into comic news. Over the past couple weeks, we just have a couple of things that were announced. Starting off, there was a Reddit AMA, which if you don't know what Reddit is, or AMA, Reddit is basically like a giant online forum where people talk back and forth with other people, but occasionally celebrities or famous people or people who of significance get on and do a thing called AMA, which is an Ask Me Anything, where you basically can pose questions to celebrities or famous people or significant people or whatever.
I know where this is going. Grant Morrison?
Yes, it is. And they, in turn, will give you the ability to, to basically ask them whatever you want, and then they'll choose whether or not they actually answer your question. But there was a AMA that was done over the past 2 weeks with Grant Morrison, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that the show Happy was debuting on Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
And I haven't actually watched it. It's sitting on my DVR, but I intend to watch it. But I'm guessing that's why, because Happy was one of his creations, and I'm guessing that's why he was on maybe a promotional tour for the series and maybe did this AMA. I don't know. But anyway, the question came up of whether or not he would have changed anything given his plans on Batman, if he would have done anything differently looking back on it. And he actually went on to say that specifically, he never had any plan set in stone as to what he wanted to accomplish on the Batman and Robin series with Dick as Batman and Damian as Robin. But he did say that he didn't intend to leave the characters as soon as he did. He had intended to have stories for Dick as Batman and Damian as Robin for at least 5 years, meaning that the entire run actually took less than 2 years when it was all said and done. But it seems as if the plans that Morrison had originally had put in place might have gotten slimmed down for the fact that DC was rolling out the New 52. That could have led into the idea of everything being changed. Now, if you remember back when Grant Morrison was still on the title and we had the comic cast, where after they actually launched the New 52, there was discussions that we had about whether or not in the past it seems like they have used the Bat books and the Bat line of books as basically a test run for certain line-wide things that they intend to do in the future, meaning back when Battle for the Cowl was happening, they actually ended all of the series and then rebooted some of the series, and then other series they just didn't bring back. And then it wasn't even 2 years later that they decided to just do this with all of the DC books with the New 52 and completely renumber issues and start back at number ones and things like that. But they originally did that back in the Bat books during Battle for the Cowl. After Battle for the Cowl, everything kind of reset, and the only books that didn't get renumbered at the time were Batman and Detective Comics, which kept going, but everything else ended at that point. Like Robin, which had been around since the early 90s, had been turned into Red Robin with a new number 1, and so forth and so on. So anyway, they did with Birds of Prey, they did it with a lot of the books. But the idea was that maybe he intended on having Bruce dead for a lot longer too.
Makes sense.
If you actually read Batman, The Return of Bruce Wayne, that story by itself felt very rushed as he was traversing his way through time it did feel like it could have potentially been rushed just for the sheer fact that they were trying to wrap everything up and have him return before everything was going to happen with the New 52. So your thoughts on whether or not you think that it would have worked out better if given more time to let him do what he intended, and not just for his intended purpose of Return of Bruce Wayne, with Bruce Wayne being dead for longer than just a short time as he was, and outside of the Batman and Robin that he was doing, but also just line-wide. Do you think it would have been better for the line to have a little bit more time to develop what they were doing with all of those new directions of the characters? And this is obviously includes Stephanie Brown as Batgirl as well. So.
I think I know what her answer is going to be about that one. I'm just guessing. I personally believe that Damon worked way better with Dick Grayson. He's fine now, but I liked him and Dick Grayson working together. And even though the area was only about 2 years, even when the current Batman stuff we're going to be talking about, we just had them go find Selina and Bruce, you still see that special bond between Dick and him. So I actually wished it would have went on longer. It would also have let us have more integration of Dick into like Justice League stories and into the bigger DC universe. I mean, after Final Crisis, Batman was gone and back. When we started the Long Run Home, I mean, it was so quick that, you know, I really wish we had 5 years. That would have been cool. And plus, it would have meant a lot more when Bruce came back. It's like when the kid died, he was back from the dead in less than 12 months. So I think the longer a character remains gone, the more his return, in fact,
For
means.
once, I'm actually going to answer one of these questions that you do before we even do our comics. Because, you know, normally I just sit here and don't I don't say anything. I will say, however, that you skipped the most important part of Grant Morrison's little thing, in which he talked about someone asked Babs or Corey for Dick, and he said Babs all the way, and I was like,
What?
yes, sir.
Yeah, but
yes,
do you remember the reasoning behind that?
Because Corey's like unhinged. It wasn't unhinged, but it was like something.
No, it was not that. He said that
Poor Ed.
Dick would be too distracted by the fact that Corey has a model-like body.
Well,
Oh, that's kind of not cool.
That's
bro.
probably how they got together in the first place. I mean, yeah, but Babs is an attractive person. Just because she's girl next door doesn't mean. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, so
To
I
each
think
their own.
always giving enough time for something to develop is always in everyone's best interest. I think however much we may not like a direction creatively, I think if you give it time, it starts to pan out. You know, I think our knee-jerk reaction with New 52 is that we very much did not like it. I think there were places that we enjoyed, but as it started developing, I think some of the books started to fall into place, and there were really wonderful runs that came out of it. And then, you know, so that's just an example that sometimes you got to stay with it. So Batman R.I.P. I read, I think, kind of recently, like in the past couple years or so, and then I read the Batman and Robin run, because I remember when all this started coming out, I was actually just starting to get into comics on the regular. And so I had Batgirl going, and then I thought, oh, I'll try Batman and Robin, and I'll try Red Robin, and I think I also had Batwoman, and I ended up not really liking any of them, which is funny because I think I sold all of those single issues that I had, and now I actually have the Batwoman that I had. I have the, not the Red Robin, but the Batman and Robin, I have all of those trades. So it's interesting that coming back, I think I appreciate them more. So I think it would have been great to have that direction continue, because I absolutely loved Stephanie Brown as Batgirl. I think there were a lot of wonderful things that were going on with that. You still had Barbara Gordon in a strong Oracle role, and you had her as a mentor, as you saw previously with Barbara and Cassandra. And then, of course, you had Proxy, who is almost stepping into that role, and you could almost imagine Barbara sort of passing the torch and things like that. And Stephanie, I think, had developed so well as a character because she's no longer a spoiler or a character that may have been getting on people's nerves, but someone that was really, I think, growing into her own character, not without fault, certainly, but I think she was stronger than we had ever seen her. I think Batman was starting to trust her. She was really finding a great place on the team. So I really love that particular run. And I think, you know, it sounds really bad because I'm on a Batman podcast, but I think it's really interesting to have Batman just not present for a while. And that's why Super Heavy was is, I think, my favorite run of Scott Snyder in current continuity, because he was just gone. And it was like, what is life like without him? And we still saw Bruce, but it was a different side of Bruce. And it gave me hope because, look, he's got this other life here. And, for most part, he's happy. And so to have Dick Grayson step into the role of Batman, and which even now I think you see ripples because of his relationship with Damian, which still continues to pop up whenever him and Dick get together. I think in a way we still see some of these stories trickling down, but I do miss sort of the opportunity that we had without Batman. I don't think you can ever just get rid of Batman altogether, but just giving it a time. Because how long was Superman actually dead? Because I have all three trades. I mean, was that close to a year that he was dead with all that crazy stuff going on?
It was a little longer than a year, but yeah.
A year and a half or so, right?
Yeah. Okay. And R.I.P., what was that?
R.I.P. lasted, man, that actually feels like it lasted longer, but it didn't. There was a lot of other stories that Grant Morrison did leading up to R.I.P. that just felt like it was just a continuation or a prelude to R.I.P. looking back, but it was probably about 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. So it's not like you just don't have enough time to even miss him, really. You just feel like he's going to come back. So I think there is a lot that could have been done potentially, and I certainly mourn the loss of Brian Q. Miller, especially as writer, and Stephanie as Batgirl. But like I said, I think we still have residue from that. Residue is sort of a negative connotation, but I think we still have flashes to what that was like with Dick and Damian. So I'm glad there's still a piece of it that we can look to.
And basically my take on this is that I feel as if they probably should have had more time to develop. The problem is that it's just one of those things where, DC as a company was making changes, and there was other books that were affected by the New 52 at the same time. I know I wasn't particularly, specifically reading the Green Lantern stuff, but a lot of people gave the Green Lantern stuff a lot of praise, and then all of a sudden the New 52 happened, and then that was one of the few ones that people said, well, if you're reading the Green Lantern books, there's not a lot of change, just like Scott Snyder was saying. Similar things at the beginning of the New 52 with the Batman books. But I know that the thing was, New 52 was a reset for a lot of stuff, but it was meant, I think in some ways, as a reset for the stuff that wasn't doing successful, or wasn't successful. And then it just kind of did other things. Now, I disagree with the idea that giving it too much time to develop. I think that, yes, at the beginning of the New 52, I think unanimously there was lots of stuff that was not very good. I think Corvallis was probably one of the very few exceptions of what was actually happening in the books that we actually enjoyed. But in general, I think that the vast majority of it,
pure and simple.
I mean, there were so many issues. I mean, with there being the Batman Dark Knight, and then there was Detective Comics, and then there was Batman Robin, and Batman. There was no cohesion whatsoever in any of those books whatsoever. Not that there's massive cohesion amongst Detective and Batman right now.
Funny you mention
that. Being said, yeah. But that being said, it's just one of those things where I feel like Rebirth has at least fixed a lot of that stuff, and if it hasn't fixed it, it's at least working out in a direction where I'm not as opposed to it. But I don't think that, sure, there were storylines within New 52 that were okay and were good and everything like that, but I don't know that looking back at it, I'm sitting here thinking, yes, New 52, I loved that line-wide thing that just erased everything or changed everything at all. I honestly feel like if the Bat books just sat outside of everything that DC was doing with the New 52, it could have probably worked out better. And not just because of what potentially Grant Morrison could have done with the return of Bruce Wayne over a longer period of time, or what could he have done with the stuff that was happening with Batman and Robin and with Dick as Batman in that. But I feel like a lot of this stuff didn't really get a huge chance, at least compared to now. I mean, you look at what DC's doing now with creative teams, and they started doing this in the New 52. You get a creative team that comes onto a book, and it's very unlikely that they're off the book unless something massively bad happens. Even a artist nowadays, even if it's a monthly book, is still on a book for at least 6 months. We've seen writing teams since the beginning of Rebirth, they're almost a year and a half in. Even though the books aren't selling remarkably well, they're not changing the writing teams. And it could just be because, they're okay with the book selling the way it is, or, it could be another reason. But I feel like there's certain books where I would have expected them to have creative changes, and I'm specifically looking over at Backroll, for example. That book
Are you looking at
isn't
somebody?
selling nearly as it's not nearly selling as well as it has in the past, and actually putting it in comparison number wise to not New 52 but pre New 52 with Stephanie Brown as spoiler. It's like actually selling, I think, a little bit less than what Stephanie Brown was selling back then. So it's one of those things where I would have preferred, the ability to have those creative teams have a little bit more time than what they actually had. And then that's not even comparing some of these books like Nightwing and Harley Quinn that have been, double shipping every single month, and the massive amount of issues that they've been able to release in just that year and a half time frame, where they can tell much larger stories and involve more characters and things like that other creators in the past, they're lucky. There was a point where I think Birds of Prey, there was never a point in the New 52 that Birds of Prey had a creator attached for longer than like 12 issues at a time, ever. I could be wrong, but I want to say like there was a point where like they changed 1 month and then 3 months later they changed after just a 3-issue story arc. It just seems like there was a lot more creator changes back then than there is now. Now the only time you see a change with the writing team is if the writing team wants to take the month off. I'm all for giving creative teams the ability to make an impact over a longer period of time, instead of just saying, hey, tell your one story that you want to tell and let's see how it does, and then if it doesn't do well, we're just going to find somebody else to write the book. It just feels like now they're in a situation where they give the writers a little bit more leeway to tell their stories. I mean, you hear Tynion talking about how he wants to be on the book until issue 1000. You hear Tom King saying he wants to be on the book until issue 100. So I mean, like that's like 4 years. Scott Snyder was on Batman by himself for almost 5 years. I mean, in general, it just seems like they're giving them a lot more ability to work with their stories. And also, in some ways, it makes more sense for them to do that. They don't have to be super successful. They just have to be successful enough where it's selling, they're making money, and it's not in danger of not selling or continuously losing readers, where if they keep the same writer, what's really the harm that it's going to do other than potentially losing readers? But if it's keeping the readership, then there is no harm, really.
I think a lot of these stories still are trial basis, though, because if you remember We Are Robin, Lee Bermejo was saying how, like, basically he was just given, 12 issues, potentially, and then they were going to see where it goes. And then the Burnside crew, I mean, this is in recent memory, the Burnside crew were only going to be given a certain amount, and then it was just so successful and popular that they were able to continue for longer. So I think it's maybe untested writers or creators are given a chance, and then see where it goes. I wonder about Batman White Knight, because there's talk of
hold on. But the problem is you're comparing two different time frames here.
But you're saying now. Now they're giving more time.
I'm saying now they're giving more time.
I mean, Burnside was pretty recent.
Burnside, you're talking about Burnside from the New 52.
Okay.
I'm talking about Rebirth people. The Rebirth people, like Hope Larson, has been on that book for almost 18 issues now. That's a year and a half. In New 52, that would be unheard of.
What Dustin is saying is he wants them fired.
Especially with the sales being where they're at. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, now they're given this time. Not a year or 2 years ago with, like, the Burnside run. We Are Robin was also during New 52. Like, we're comparing, like, New 52 to Rebirth. It's not in the same boat. I think that it's completely different. The We Are Robin thing, I think, actually was there's a whole different part of that, which was it was never meant to be what it became. He had said in interviews that he pitched the idea for a series for Vertigo. They said, hey, we could apply this to something that's happening over in the Batman books. Would you be interested in it? He adapted it to work for the Robins. And
worst mistake he ever made.
And then it didn't end up doing super well. I mean, it's not like they ended it sooner than they needed to.
No.
Honestly, he told the story in the first 6 issues. It probably wasn't meant to be like a super long, ongoing series to begin with.
That's too bad.
But it also feels like they're giving more chances.
Sure.
It's like they're taking more risk now than they were during the New 52 in some regard, because not only are they giving the writing teams more opportunities to stay on the books longer and tell a longer form story, but they're also doing a lot more of these miniseries with writers that are not necessarily super well proven. And a perfect example, like you were about to bring up, was Batman White Knight with Sean Gordon Murphy, who has not been, like, he's been an artist on books, but to give somebody the full reign of artist, writer on a series by himself, and then say, here you go, let's give you basically our top tier character in Batman, and you can do not only whatever you want with them, because this is going to be taking place out of continuity, but we're going to let you do crazy things like make the Joker actually Jack Napier from his alter ego from the 1989 movie. I mean, like, they're clearly giving a lot more ability to take more
and
risks.
Seemingly already having a sequel planned out. And then you've got the Signal business, which, what's his name? Cully Hamner? Is that his name?
Cully Hamner's on Batman the Signal. He's the artist.
Okay.
But then Tony Patrick is the writer, and he's teaming with Scott Snyder.
Gotcha, yeah. So, again, potentially, yeah. Well, Scott's, bringing in, it's all about knowing who you know, and Scott's bringing in all of his little people,
brings in his buddies,
words that he's been teaching.
His students, yeah. All right, so after that happened, there was a couple of other news bits. Also on December 8th, we but we knew this was happening ahead of time. But for those of you who have been keeping up with the history of Batman and the creator of Batman, Bob Kane, the co-creator, Bill Finger, who has not received credit up until just recently. I mean, let's just go back to the beginning of this specific podcast and the fact that Bill Finger was never even mentioned in the same breath as Bob Kane when it came to DC's credits. Now we see that the credit is actually created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. So having to do with this was that the city of New York actually ended up naming a street in Queens, Bill Finger Way, in honor of the fact that Bill Finger is in fact one of the co-creators of Batman. So there's a picture from the actual ceremony that they gave over on the site if you want to take a look at that. Also, if you want to learn more about that, if you're unfamiliar with the history of Bill Finger, over on Hulu there's a documentary called Batman and Bill that you could check out. It's not actually very long, it's only about 30 minutes, so you could check that out to learn a lot more about Bill Finger and who he was as a man behind Bob Kane, who for years was the sole person who was getting credit for creating Batman. So be sure to check that out.
Donovan years ago did an interview with the man who wrote that book at San Diego Comic-Con. So that should be on the site, right?
Tile Noble. All right, so finally, the last bit of news we have comes on December 14th. It was announced that after the crossover that is going to be happening in January, February with the Young Animal imprint, there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup with a bunch of the Young Animal titles. The only one that we actually cover here at TBU is Mother Panic, but the specific change that's happening to Mother Panic is that Mother Panic is going to be hopping into the future. Not getting into a time machine or anything and heading into the future, but actually 10 years into the future from the current story that's being told. I guess this is a way of, telling an Elseworlds version of history or an alternate version of history. The series is going to be retitled Mother Panic Gotham AD, and it will have Violet Page in 10 years into Gotham's future. There is no Batman, and the city itself is controlled by a group called the Collective, who have a zero-tolerance policy for all would-be heroes. Violet Page will need to find a way to continue her vigilante mission in a world that seems to draw heavily from Batman Beyond and cyberpunk thrillers of the 1980s. The series will be continued to be written by Jody Houser and Tommy Lee Edwards, and Ibrahim Mustafa will be doing the art on the series. So the first issue is going to hit stores this March.
I'm happy for this. I'm more interested to see Violet in the future than I am Batman Beyond.
Oh, wow.
To be honest with you.
Oh, man. No wonder you don't read it. You abstain all the time on that book.
I do.
It's terrible.
I do.
Okay. So does it even say in its little solicitation that it's a potential future? Is this where we're going?
It doesn't say a potential future. It just says it is 10 years in the future.
I slightly feel that this is a cop-out, if only because we knew that sales were not as good. And so I feel like, well, is this what we need to do, is go in the future in order to spark new life into this book? So I'm interested to see what this book looks like when we pick it up. But I hope it's not just a... gimmick is not the word I'm looking for, but just a way to get sales back up on that book.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, it does feel like it is a play to try to get sales back up But my concern is that the series, despite the fact that the series takes place in Gotham, it takes place in the same world as all of the other Gotham heroes, we've only occasionally had other characters pop into the series to make very, very quick appearances. Batman's appeared, Batwoman has appeared, but there's not a whole lot going on with the other members of Gotham. Batman's not really involved in the story. And that's, to a degree, okay, but it comes back to back when we first started the TBU podcast and we covered comics over on there was a series out at the time called Simon Dark.
That sounds familiar.
And Steve Niles was attached to that series. And it was basically, there was this guy, he dealt with all kinds of weird demons and monsters and stuff within the world of Gotham City. He came in contact with Batman very, very few and far between. I think, honestly, other than a couple of rare cameos until the last story arc. And the series only lasts, I think, like 8 issues. But up until the last story arc, Batman wasn't even part of it. And it's one of those things where you would think that Batman, being who he is, anybody who's operating within the confines of Gotham City, he would know about it. And not to say that they addressed it to a degree in Mother Panic that Batman knows that she's around, but there's no, who is this person? We're not learning very much about her as a character through herself, because she's not very forthcoming with information about herself. So you would think that they could do an outside perspective of maybe Batman doing one issue where Batman investigates her to figure out who she is, and then you learn more about her, and then you get all of that unnecessary backstory out of the way by just having Batman explain who she is and realizing that she's not really a threat. If anything, she's just a nuisance that he's just going to choose to ignore. And then you don't have to have Batman anymore. Wow. The problem is, I think that there was too many issues that came out where they're not really furthering the story. That was one of the series, to me, that feels like there's not a lot that happens in it month to month. And not that I want it to come out twice a month so that more can happen or anything like that. I just feel like it's just moving at a very slow pace. And stories like that don't tend to do super well. There has to be stuff happening. I'm not saying action sequences, but you have to develop the characters a little bit more than just giving little bits and pieces. I mean, I don't think it was until issue 6 that we learned that she was behind the death of her father. So it's one of those things where slowly learning about a character who you're trying to have a series devoted to is very difficult to do if you don't, develop the character, at least the main character, quickly enough, or develop at least the other characters around her if you're going to keep her backstory a mystery or whatever. So
I think this could actually be good for the book, because I think one of the things it's had to do was it wanted to be in Gotham City, but you couldn't have a major event, and you probably couldn't bring too many characters in without clearing it through the bat offices, right?
Maybe.
I think by putting in the future, maybe you can kind of give Violet her own timeline, her own book, without having to worry about stepping on what's going on in the regular Gotham book. Does that make sense? I think giving her own little place,
It makes complete sense, but here's the issue with that. What was the reason of putting her in Gotham in the first place if the whole problem was going to be, we can't have too many things happen or jeopardize too many things, then why not just create a character that's outside of Gotham City or in some other city that's not being utilized or something?
I think that's viable too, but I think that here's the thing, I definitely hear what Stella's saying, but I like Elseworlds, and I wish they just slam an Elseworlds imprint on it and call it a day, right? Because we all know when we have these future stories, they're never set in stone, they always change. So just slam an Elseworlds imprint on it, make me happy. But I agree with you, maybe they should have just set her in her own city, her own continuity bubble per se. I think that'd be fine, but since they didn't, I think this could be interesting. I don't know why. I saw this news and I'm like, oh, that's cool, because I really like Mother Panic. I think it's interesting, and I think it's definitely got a gritty edge, and I think sometimes it's probably too gritty for the mainstream Bat books, but I do like it.
Yeah, I'll say this. I don't dislike it. I just wish that there was more to the stories. I just feel like after getting the issues that we have, I just feel like the thing that I'm most interested in, which is the thing that probably has the least to do with the story, is the development of Otis Flanagan. And I don't know why I'm interested in that, just because he is a character from the Batman universe that hasn't been used other than that appearance we just saw recently in Detective Comics. He's not a character that's been used, so if they're going to change a character around that is a character that's never in any other book, I'm okay with that. I just feel like it's one of those weird things where I have an issue with them having a series where they say, you know what, we've got like Shade the Changing Girl. She's already a character who's existed before. We've got the Doom Patrol. They've already existed before. So we're just retelling or telling a different version of that story. This one, we're going to have a brand new character that has zero ties to anything else that has existed in the past, but we're going to plop her in Gotham City so that there is that little built-in aspect of the book in some regards, saying like, oh, it's tied to Gotham City, so that's why you should potentially check it out. And I know that that's why they do it, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, then at least tie it a little bit more than just saying this is somebody who's living in Gotham City. Actually have some of the characters from Gotham City be in the book or appear in the book or have a role in the book. And outside of just one character of, you know, the Ratcatcher. I mean,
Batwoman was in there.
Yes, Batwoman was, but it wasn't like a super developed relationship that she had. It was just an appearance, just like Batman's made a couple appearances here and there. So I'm looking forward to see what they do. It'll just be interesting to see how little it actually connects, because now that they've decided to move to the future, but again, still stay in Gotham City, and now somehow Batman is out of the picture, it'll be interesting to see how this all comes together. I'm worried because a year from now, are they going to try to do something completely different again? And I also am concerned because I know that the Young Animal stuff is not anything that DC is expecting to have amazing sales for.
Correct.
I'm fully aware of that. But at the same point, like, they're keeping these books around because they have this desire to have these unique titles or whatever. Okay, that's fine. You can't do 12 issues, or like in Doom Patrol's situation where they have had so many delays in that title.
Lots of
that
delays.
There's barely been any issues that have actually released. You can't keep rebooting them and giving them a new number one every year just because, or, you know, jumping in the future 10 years or jumping somewhere else just because the sales aren't great and they have this desire to have better sales. I mean, like, it's just not going to happen. So,
I agree.
all right. So with that, the only other news that we have is over on the website. There was just one new Last Week in the Batcave for you to check out, as the second one, as I mentioned in the last episode, Jessica was actually at CCXP, which I did look up, and it does in fact have a higher attendance rate than San Diego Comic-Con by like 25 to 30,000 more people.
Whoa.
So it's crazy huge, and to put in perspective, it's definitely going to probably get bigger over the years, because even Warner Brothers attended that convention and did a similar thing like they did at San Diego, where they showed some clips from different things that are coming up and things like that, and showed the same thing where they showed the slate just like they did at San Diego Comic-Con. So that is a huge convention, and it's only a matter of time before other countries have these massive conventions as well, and they'll just continue to be bigger and bigger. San Diego has the potential of being bigger as well if they move to a bigger convention hall.
Anaheim?
And that's not to say that they should or they shouldn't. Quite honestly, it's not a big deal to me one way or the other, because I haven't attended since 2011.
How dare you?
But Stella, from experience, do you think it would be better if they moved, or do you prefer if they stayed?
I mean, do I want to be wrestling with more people? No. But, this has been talked about, I think the two big considerations are Las Vegas and Anaheim. And so, I mean, if they want more people, I guess it'll make me feel uncomfortable, but it'll also be safer, because, as we know, the threat is always out there for small press associations to be stricken from the list and their passes be given to actual people. So that fear, I think, would go away if they were in a larger place. That means we wouldn't have that fear as much. So that there are pros and cons. I mean, it's insane walking around through that amount of people. But
if it went to Vegas, I'd go.
I bet you would.
Because I love Vegas.
Because you have carpal tunnel from pulling down on those little things all the time.
Yeah.
No, I play blackjack.
Oh, okay. Well.
I play with cards. But no, yes, if it was in Vegas, I'd be, all in.
Boy, can only imagine.
All right. So, that being said, be sure to check out the latest Last Week in the Batcave, as new episodes will be releasing over the next couple weeks. And I guess at this point, I'm assuming, maybe it'll be a day late, but I'm assuming there could be one on Christmas. I haven't heard from Jessica to say otherwise, so there could be one on Christmas, and there probably will be one on New Year's Day,
yes.
Just because those happen to land on Mondays. If not, they'll maybe be Tuesday, but I haven't heard anything about not having one. It just might be smaller than normal just because of the holidays. as news has been smaller than normal just because of the
Small
holidays.
news.
So, with that being said, we're going to jump into our comic book reviews, and the first one we have is Batman.
My first question in this issue, before I even give the synopsis,
I love it.
is whether or not you like the new price tag, I guess I should say, where it's got and the label for DC, where it's got the DC Universe. It's black and white. It's different now than the blue that we had come to know and I guess love. And then now, I guess I'm only reading Batman, so I can't say, but now there's also a little symbol of the character that you're reading. In this case, it's a red background and a black bat. So before I even give that, since this is, I think, the first issue that it's like this that we've read, unless I was just completely out of it last episode, what do you think about this new label and design?
This is actually the first week that these have popped up.
Yay!
And they started at the beginning of December, so these are the first issues that we're reviewing that have them. They are new. It's line wide. If you read other books, most of the other Bat books will have a Bat logo just like that. I was actually trying to figure out at one point if there was a difference between the Bat symbols to try to show whether or not, we've talked about whether or not Batman or Detective have been on different timelines and things like that. I was thinking maybe the symbol could potentially reveal something as far as that, but it's not the case. They're the same. Red Hood and the Outlaws has the Bat symbol. Batgirl has the Bat symbol. Birds of Prey has the Bat symbol. Most of the Bat books have it. Some of the other books that we have, like Justice League and Justice League of America, they have their own versions of the Justice League logo. Suicide Squad has a target in the middle, as their logo. Some of the 6-issue miniseries actually say 6-issue miniseries in it, like Ragman, which we're currently covering over on the website. Some other ones that actually have like a logo have their logo instead of a thing that says 6-issue miniseries. Some of the other books, like Scooby-Doo, has an actual Scooby-Doo face as the logo. Like Where Are You, Scooby-Doo, which is one of the main kids' book that DC still releases. So it is line wide. It was to basically differentiate the stuff from being DC Rebirth, which is still obviously DC Rebirth, but they don't have the banner at the top anymore. And I will say my thoughts on this are I love it. It goes back to me, it's more legacy, more traditional to have the number box on the comic. It also means that the images and the cover art for it will be much more detailed because they won't have this giant chunk of the top of the cover art that will be designated for the Rebirth banner and the title and things like that. Like, the title's still there, obviously, but the one thing I do wish that was different was I wish that they would have updated some of the actual title logos. Like the Batman title logo is the same one they've been using since the beginning of the New 52. I wish they would change that with a more updated version, or just update all of the logos in general, because they did that at the beginning of the New 52. I wish they would have done that at the same time, but I overall like the box. So
Yeah, it's fun.
Wow. Okay. And I also like it. I like that it's black and white. I think it's simple, but it stands out. But I also think that's probably true of all the new logos because your eye goes to it because it's very different. I will say that I agree with Dustin about now they can utilize their space more without the huge banner. But I did like that on the banner it said the storyline and what part it was. I thought that was pretty cool because
I like that.
felt
Yeah, I
like
did
that
like
was
that too,
vintage, like going
yeah.
back, No Man's Land, Part 5, like going back to that sort of thing. So I do miss that a little bit.
well, maybe they will do that with bigger events.
Maybe.
If they do like a crossover over multiple, like they did with Night of the Monster Man. Maybe they'll bring something like that. It's not to say they couldn't. I feel like the Rebirth thing though they kind of overdid it, where sometimes there's a story arc going on, like for example, the Kite Man stuff. Or, do you really need to have it say War of Jokes and Riddles Prelude Part 2? Do you really need that? No, probably not. Or, I don't know how far you have to go in it, but like definitely with like multi-series crossovers, I think they should. If they don't intend to, I think they should.
This is Batman number 36, Super Friends Part 1, Tom King script, Clayman pencils and cover, and then Clayman and Seth Man inks. Oh, and Jordi Belair cover and interior color. So as you might guess, this is about two super friends. You have Superman and Lois, and Batman and Catwoman. And each of their stories are running parallel, and they're basically talking about the same thing. And the women, as usual, are the smart creatures in the relationship, and the men are being stubborn and dumb. Both Lois and Catwoman feel like Batman and Superman should talk to each other and either congratulations or talk about the whole engagement thing, but they don't want to for whatever reason. Catwoman at one point wonders if Batman's ashamed of her, but that doesn't seem to be the issue. Meanwhile, the pairs are also on the trail of a similar / the same case, which it's very unclear right now about the case. I think I'm going to wait until we get further on in the story. But they're on the lookout for Dr. Axe / yeah, I guess we'll go with that. Or X. Axe or X, and it's because they're getting different information, but it's the same person. And on their way to, it happens to be the same place, so it's one of those things where you get set up on a blind date, I guess. They are each talking about how they very much respect the other person, and just with circumstances, and how they turned out to be the man that he has turned out to be. So very, very loving. And so they're each going to the same place, which is pretty comedic. And they all hit the same floor at the same time. And it's a little awkward. And the women, again, being the smart creatures as they are, they end up making each other's acquaintance, which is lots of fun. And that's basically how it ended, except that Dr. Double X, which perhaps he's the one that they were going after, pops up, and then both Batman and Superman say each other's catchphrases, and then they go off to fight Dr. Double X. And finish him very quickly in 2 panels. So after that, they all want to get a bite to eat. And it says that the next issue is a double date 78 years in the making. Okay, so, I have 2 questions. One, I'll start with this one. I think a lot of times we talk about, especially in this particular era, we're starting to see glimpses of characters that perhaps we haven't seen before. And I remember the last time we had this discussion was about Alfred and what we thought about that new dimension of his character. And so now I'm going to ask a very similar question, because here we get to see a different side, at least I feel like, a different side of the Batman-Superman relationship. Do you think this adds to your perception of what they feel about each other, or how we've seen them in comics and other forms of media? Or do you think this is very different than what we've seen, and Tom King, as he is wont to do, is starting something new and putting his own touch on this particular relationship that apparently is 78 years old, maybe?
I would say there hasn't been a whole lot of incarnations that have explored this sort of relationship between, let's say, the 2 couples, or even this side of Batman and Superman's relationship to a degree. I mean, thinking back, the Batman-Superman series during the New 52, there was a story arc that dealt with Catwoman and Superman with Lois Lane, but I believe they were like alternate versions of the characters. They weren't like the main versions of the characters. I believe there were some other Earth versions that explored how they all had a relationship that intersected with each other and interacted with each other. But this actually, I feel like it's not been explored, so I'm completely okay with them doing this. And I mean, like, overall, I think that they bring up some really cool points. They make it seem like Batman or Bruce and Clark actually have more of a relationship than working relationship. Yeah, sure, we see that in some of the other issues, but this really feels like they're friends, but they don't know how good of friends they really are with each other, where they're constantly just questioning their friendship and whether or not it's as strong as you would expect it to be to like talk about certain things. So I think in that regard, he's doing a really good job, and I didn't have very many issues with this specific issue. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, over the years, it's too numerous to count Superman and Batman stories. I mean, you could just sit here and start listing them off. There's been a lot of them. I don't think we've had a lot with Lois and Catwoman. We think we've seen a lot of interaction with Batman and Lois.
Yes, world's finest. I ship Batman.
We've seen some interaction with them before, but think about it too. Superman and Lois have been a couple off and on, married and unmarried, for a big majority of Superman's career. I mean, I'm not a Superman expert, but they're always been together. And when they weren't during the New 52, the world kind of lost its mind for a while. But the truth is, the time where Batman and Catwoman have been a real couple isn't that long. I mean, you have a story here and there, but unless you're taking the Earth 2 versions, I don't know. Like, so, I mean, like, you have, like I said, lots of stories where, like, Hush, where she plays a major part, but they haven't been together for, like, years of comic book time, so I guess that would limit how much time Superman and her would have to interact, or her and Lois. I don't think this adds anything for me for the Superman-Batman relationship. I mean, we know they're boys, we know they're friends, and like most friends, we question... we think that our friends are good people, or we wouldn't be such close friends with them, especially for someone like Superman and Batman. So it makes sense that they would both kind of think that the other guy is a better guy. They're both semi-humble at heart. For me, the more curious interaction here is going to be the interaction that we don't get to see a lot. Superman interacting with Catwoman, Batman with Lois. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get to see Superman and Batman together all the time. It's cool and it's fun, and the moments are cool in the book. I don't dislike them or anything. But for me, the more interesting interaction would be seeing Superman and Catwoman having a conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that was one of the main points, because they were both saying how they wanted to meet each other. I think Lois is certainly, as an intrepid reporter, I think she certainly has more of a curiosity. But so it's very interesting, and I think perhaps one of my favorite moments was outside of that hotel, outside the elevator, and just the weird conversation going between the two men, and then Catwoman steps behind Bruce and then, reaches over to Lois, and they shake hands and such. Yeah, we've seen, Superman and Batman, I think inevitably they're going to meet. They meet in Elseworlds, they meet in animation, they meet in film now, and it's a very distinct relationship that they have. In my opinion, I feel like this is something that we've not seen, because I don't know if I've ever seen them. Well, maybe with Justice League, with that film. Oh, we haven't talked about that. With that film that came out, perhaps there's more reverence on the side of Bruce than we've seen, especially from Batman versus Superman, because, he realizes that they really need Superman's help. But here, it's like how much admiration they have for each other, and I don't know if I've read that really, even though they've had so many team-ups. They've had the Batman-Superman title in multiple incarnations, I guess at least 2. So this is, I think it's about the ladies right now, which is really interesting, and it's just a dimension that we've not really needed, I think, before, because, as you said, Ed, even besides, there's a rhyme there, said Ed, even besides Bruce having Catwoman, Bruce doesn't really have a steady girlfriend, when Bruce was an amnesiac and was with Vicky Vale, I don't recall. But Clark went over there. Clark went over there, but Lois wasn't with him.
No, but I'm saying it was Julie Madison.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for doing that. I remember her tattoos. No problem. Sometimes I get them mixed up. So anyway,
because of the tattoos.
Anywho,
same tat, different girls.
Bat-splained by a man. But anywho, I'm looking forward to this with the females. But we'll see if it's Super Friends or the Super Friends Batman and Superman, which is what we expect, or is there going to be a little team up with Lois and Catwoman, which is interesting because I have to think about Birds of Prey. I think they're separated by degrees. I don't know if they were ever on the Birds of Prey team together, because in its initial incarnation, you always had Dinah and Oracle. But then people would hop on, hop off. So you had the Catwoman. That was during Manhunt. You had during, I think, Showcase 94, you had Lois. But they were never together. So it'd be interesting to think about that. But I guess now you could say in Rebirth continuity that they're on the same team. Because with the Manslaughter arc, they're both on the Birds of Prey. Anywho, okay, my second question is, I found out while listening to Joshua Lapin-Bertoni's New York Comic Con recap episode that Tom King, I think the number he threw out was either 13 or 17 issues for this arc.
Whoa.
Let's go with 13 because then it's not as wild. But it was when I was listening to it, I was like, oh dear, sounds like Scott Snyder. So what he said is his rules of engagement arc is 13 issues, if that's the number. It's either 13 or 17, but let's go with 13. Do you think this counts as being a part of the rules of engagement arc? So, however long the Super Friends arc is, that's just maybe 3 or 4 issues, but in the whole? Or do you think this is, as he has done before, an aside, sort of like he did with the War of Poops and Giggles? He had the Kite Man aside. What are your thoughts on this in its place of the rules of engagement, how it's working in there?
Okay, it's 17.
Ooh-hoo.
That's the number you're looking for. And it is specifically because War of Jokes and Riddles ended at number 32. Batman 33 was the initial, reveal that he is, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember this for sure, but if I remember, 32 was the last issue of War of Jokes and Riddles, and that's where she says yes. Then 33 is when the two of them go to the Middle East and come in contact with Talia, and then that lasted over the 3 issues, and then now we're at 36 with the Super Friends. So it's 17, but the idea is that if I remember correctly from his explanation, it was 17 issues, and it's basically him going around talking to his friends, explaining what's going on, that he's engaged, so forth and so on. It was weird knowing that it was 17 issues and that he decided to just skip the entire Bat family and, I guess, go to Talia first and find Holly in the process, and then now go to Superman. But meanwhile, Alfred was the one just to let everybody else know. That being said, it was 17, but the thing is, originally when it was Rules of Engagement, I believe that is just like the first 2 issues, because now the Super Friends, I think, is 2 issues, and then I believe there's 2 issues that are featuring Wonder Woman, and then I can't remember where they're going from there. There's a Poison Ivy story at some point in the midst of this, which I'm guessing has something to do with maybe Catwoman goes to her side of, and, maybe tells Harley in an issue and then talks to Poison Ivy. I don't know, I just know that there's a Poison Ivy story coming up too. All of that being said, I think that he's just doing smaller story arcs right now. I think there's smaller story arcs in a larger story arc. I don't think the 17 issues is really the rules of engagement. I think that was just the first 3. Now we're at Super Friends, which is 2, if not 3. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how the Wonder Woman stuff plays into this, if it's just a new story arc or whatever, but if I remember correctly, that's the way they're going with it. That being said, it's supposed to lead to issue 50, which, if I remember him saying in a different interview that 50 is supposed to be like an oversized issue, who knows what is actually going to happen at that point. I mean, it is happening next year. It's not like it's that far out, so we'll be hearing about it sooner rather than later. But that all being said, I feel like this is just them going the rounds and talking to people that they know, and basically the couple of Catwoman and Batman interacting with their friends, things like that, enemies to a degree with Talia and other people that I'm sure they'll come in contact with. Just seeing how the two of them interact as a engaged couple. So
I guess it's 17 for this exploration of the Catwoman-Batman relationship, because this is not one long coherent story.
Definitely not.
It's not like this is part 1, part 2, part 3. It's kind of meandering.
So you don't think this whole thing is rules of engagement? It's just called something else?
I don't know what it's called, but it's definitely not rules of engagement, because that was just the Talia story.
I think Tom King, when he says that, is referring to the overall engagement arc. Maybe in his mind it's all rules of engagement. Maybe I don't know what they call it, but the Tom King Catwoman/Batman engagement arc, I'm doing air quotes again, is 17 issues. It doesn't seem like it's going to be any type of coherent story. It looks like we're going to get a little 3-shot of this, a little 3-shot of that, a little 3-shot of this. 17's a lot. I mean, at least we're getting 2 issues a month, so we're not having to space it out over a year and a half. I mean, so that would be one thing. I do hope that this isn't. I hope this isn't a countdown to the end of the Batman Catwoman relationship in 17 issues. That would suck. And I get that this is kind of a cool memory lane stuff. And what's written here isn't bad. It's not like I read and I'm like, this is Drac. But it's almost like, how many more issues of walking around talking about them being engaged and meeting people can we? You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it.
At this point, I don't have any problems with them continuing to do this. I don't care if they keep going.
You mean just like an issue if we go see a character every 2 weeks and say we're engaged?
Well, it'd be once a month because it seems like they're at least spending a month with whoever they're visiting. So, like, it was 36, and it'll be 37 that they're with Superman and Lois. We know Wonder Woman's coming up after that. Talia was before that. I mean, honestly, like, the Talia stuff I had some issues with, but I mean, like, this was really good. The entire story with Superman and Lois Lane. Like, if we get these shorter form stories from Tom King, which I think he's better at than the longer stuff, I'm completely okay with that for at least the time being. If we want to do like basically a holding pattern over the engagement to not have to like rush things along. I mean, like where do we need to go? I mean, like where do you go from here if they don't keep meeting people or interacting with each other? Just as a engaged couple, you either have to get to the wedding or you have to get to the point where they break up. And I don't need the desire for that to happen. Immediately in the not foreseeable, I should say, like in the immediate future. I don't need that to happen like right away. So I'm okay with them just doing shorter story arcs, and quite honestly, I'd rather him do shorter story arcs than the longer stuff.
I don't think that's true. Like, people don't get engaged and get married 2 months later. Like, they could be engaged for a year or two, especially with their lives, planning a wedding. I mean,
right, but what do you... But you're saying you don't want to see them interacting with other people.
No, I don't want to see 2 issues of let's go talk to Wonder Woman, let's go talk to Green Lantern. Dude, throw an engagement party like everyone else in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do not want 17 issues of 2 weeks with Superman, 2 weeks with Wonder Woman, 2 issues with Green Lantern. Like, stop. Seriously. Like, I'm sorry. I find this to be just, I mean, it's well written, but it's boring. I mean, to me, it's just not interesting. Like, it's just not. I mean, especially if it's going to go on for 2 more months. Like,
I completely disagree.
How
but,
dare
I mean,
you,
everybody their own.
No, that's what's cool. I mean, we're not always going to agree. It's just, for me, this is kind of like, okay, I get it.
Some of us really enjoy Death of the Family, and some of us didn't.
Always comes back to that. Hey, what can we say? Some of us got taste.
Every day I regret telling Dustin that you'd be a good pick for the Comic Cast. Every day.
I'm sorry.
Heavens. I think that this whole thing is rules of engagement. I think that this is just like going around because the central focus is that neither of them want to talk about this white elephant that's in the room. And so I think even though the entire arc is going to be that, I think it's going to be split up into smaller stories. I like this almost world tour, but I think it only makes sense if he's hitting people that he's actually close with. I think the Trinity, absolutely. So if it's Wonder Woman X, absolutely. I don't think that it should go down the route of Death of Damien. I can't remember what that was called. Because remember, he was hitting up all these different people, and it was Aquaman. I think Frankenstein was one of the people. So let's go to people that he actually cares about. I don't think Barbara Gordon was in that room, so it'd be nice if he maybe told her about that. Hey, guess what? Your pseudo mom-in-law is gonna be this, or stepmom, I guess. Not really. I said pseudo. Yeah. So I kind of like that story, but I don't want it to go on for too long. That it weakens the impact, because I think that this was really good, and so if you keep doing the same thing, then it starts to get weaker each time.
Right. Let's be clear. We have no idea what he actually is going to do for these 17 issues.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
we never do.
I know what's happening in these 2 issues with Superman and Lois Lane. I know that the next issue has Wonder Woman. That's 38 or 39, I think. But I don't know what's after that. And it might not be just, hey, I'm engaged. It just might be, hey, there's some other guest appearing in Batman for a while alongside Batman and Catwoman. I mean, like, I just pulled up the solicitations for the Poison Ivy story that's going to start in issue number 41, and it says Poison Ivy has taken control of all the people on the planet, and somehow Batman and Catwoman are the only ones who have not been affected by her for some reason. So it's clearly the two of them could just be working to take down Poison Ivy. I mean, like, that could be the case too. I'm just saying, like, I'm okay with these shorter story arcs that explore the relationship of Batman and Catwoman. I don't necessarily want him doing 17 issues of let's go to this person, let's go to that person. I don't want, like Stella was saying, the stages of grief where we end up seeing Frankenstein and Aquaman. Yeah. That's not super necessary. But I think that these shorter story arcs that he's telling, there's a lot more development with the characters. I'm learning more about the two of them as a couple rather than let's just have some massive thing where they're involved. I mean, I'm learning more in these last couple issues about the two of them than I did the entire time they were working together during the Ian Bane storyline, which lasted like 6 months. So I'm okay with the shorter stuff if he's developing the characters more like he has been, at least over the last couple issues. So
I wish Gotham City Sirens were still in continuity, because it'd be interesting for Catwoman to have her own little going off to see her girlfriends and like talk about that, or have a really wacky bachelorette party. But I'm afraid that's not going to work. But I feel like I can already answer the question of why they're not affected, because if I think Catwoman spent enough time with Ivy that she has probably been inoculated, like Ivy did that to Harley when they were living together. Plus, Harley and Ivy are together, so she probably has to have inoculations. And Batman's crazy; he knows all that stuff. I think that's really. Those are really the two main questions that I have. Maybe I'll save it. But something to keep in the back of your mind is whether this Dr. Axe, if that was distracting at all to the story. And really the main story is, Batman and Superman. But I guess I kind of want to wait to see if this criminal element pops up again. Because if it doesn't, then I guess it was just a little distraction, or just a little side thing to get them together. But if it's a continuing story, so maybe I'll save that for next time if I even remember. That's all I have.
All right, so I'm going to give this issue a total of 4 out of 5.
I'm gonna give this total 2.5 out of 5.
Oh my gosh, who even are you?
Okay, 3. I'll give it 3. I'll give it 3 out of 5.
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's just
bumped it up.
After some cajoling.
He bumped it up because he realized Stella was the one who suggested that he came here. Come here.
Yeah, you gotta take care of those to take care of you. I know, it's cool.
I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5. I thought it was really well done.
5 out of 5?
Yes, I thought it was
Y'all
great.
are crazy.
Sure. Maybe if you weren't drinking the
We're on different
Snyder
pages on this one,
Kool-Aid, your mind would be open.
I'll read it again after this, just to make sure I didn't miss something great, because you guys give it really high ratings, and I respect you guys, so I'll go and read it again. But
well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you didn't have any desire to do that until Stella gave you some crap. But anyway,
I mean, hey, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Over on the site, Matthew gave it 4.5 out of 5, so I'm going to give this issue, overall, not me.
4.8?
Overall, this issue is going to get 4 out of 5 batarangs.
Or 4.8.
I am standing in a field alone on this one, aren't I?
Yes.
I think you are. I honestly think you are.
That's how it feels when I always say that Dark Knight Metal is terrible. Now you know how it
And
feels.
then you say something like that. Ugh. Come on, Stella. It's great. It's great. It's great. I promise.
Sure.
I think I was more hurt by you saying that Doomsday Clock was terrible.
I thought that was pretty bad too,
Really?
actually. And I'm not alone on that.
I know.
I'm
I just can't believe
so
that.
I was
glad
more
I'm
hurt
not
by
alone.
that.
I was
Okay,
shocked.
I could see people not liking Dark Knight's Metal just because of the violence and stuff like that, and the over necessity for the gruesomeness and certain
Continuity.
aspects.
Yeah.
But Doomsday Clock, it's just good comics. All right. Anyway,
It's as good as it gets.
let's move on. Detective Comics number 970, written by James Tynion IV, art by Joe Bennett. This issue starts off, asleep in the belfry chair, Tim Drake dreams of Bat Tim's warning to him that everything he just returned to will be over sooner than he can imagine. He wakes, sweating, to Stephanie Brown, leaning over him in concern. He brushes her worry to the side, even though it's been 4 days since he's had a real sleep in a bed. Similar to the way Batman, who's over in Justice League number 34, went 3 days without sleep and had disastrous consequences. He takes micronaps, but Steph reminds him that he died just months ago. Still impatient, he tells Steph, All the ideas won't let him rest for too long, organizing the Bat family, coordinating secretly with the police, planning patrols of the entire city with all of the manpower, and even starting a Bat ambulance service with Leslie Tompkins. Steph begs him to slow down and listen to himself, but Tim feels like he can't miss his chance to reshape the world. Batman and Batwoman riding motorcycles discuss the Batman's premonition of danger. Azrael and Batwing open up a truck full of cyber assassins, and Batman and Batwoman notice that the assassins use the same stances as the Knights. The Batman connects it with Mayor Atkins' footage of the team's activities. Meanwhile, Dr. October consults with Clayface, telling him that a cure is almost possible. He wants to give it to Gloria Griffin, Mudface, first, since he's still not sure if he deserves a chance to be better. Orphan walks in asking if Basil is ready, and he tentatively agrees. At Batwoman's headquarters, she takes off her uniform and her father appears. He helps her with her injuries from the cyber assassins, despite her hostility from his betrayal with the colony. He tells Kate that the colony has also gotten the video footage of the team that the mayor and the villains have, and that Red Robin has reached out to the colony to see if they can work together. He warns Kate that if Tim doesn't stop expanding Batman's army, the government may be compelled to step into Gotham, and that something darker is also afoot, hidden by Tim's efficiency.
Afoot.
Whatever, I say afoot. I don't care.
Oh, it's fine.
Food?
I liked it. That's why I repeated it.
As Cass and Clayface take down the Cyber Assassin's factory, she tells him to take this chance at life, leave the fighting behind, and she'll help him be good. Tim calls Steph to the Belfry and accuses her of leaking the footage to all of the various groups. She agrees that it was her phone, but proves that Anarchy is behind the distribution. She goes to find out Lonnie's plan and tells Tim angrily that by assuming she would betray the Knights like that, he has betrayed their relationship. She also reveals that she knows he doesn't plan to retire like he did before his death, and tells him she's leaving, not sure if she's just exiting, quitting the team, or breaking up with him, or all of the above. After she's gone, Tim pulls up Anarchy's cell feed from Arkham and sees that it's empty. At Arkham itself, Clayface is offering Gloria the cure. Guards rush in, stunning Clayface, and she reveals that the Victim Syndicate has revealed footage of his work with Batman to the media. Clayface asks why she's doing this, and she says she can't forgive him and let him try to live a good life. As she reveals her plan, the first victim and Anarchy come up behind her. All right, so first things first. So it seems like Steph and Tim could be completely on the outs after their, I guess in some ways we thought it was a hasty reunion, and the fact that they just kind of got back together so quickly in the last issue, and the fact that she was just brought back onto the team so quickly without real explanation because it all happened off panel. Now she's leaving him, the team, who knows what, but it's all bad. Just one issue later. So thoughts on their relationship?
You'd think we lived in a world where coming back from the dead would get you more than 2 issues of relationship peace, wouldn't you? I mean, you were dead and now you're back. So you would think that they would at least have some type of honeymoon phase, right? Like, well, I thought you were dead. Like, I mean, I would like to think that if my wife thought I got, smoked in a car accident and I miraculously walked out of the woods 6 months later, that, we'd be happy for a while before I got in trouble for not doing the dishes or something. But no, I get why she's upset, but I think that this could have a little more to play where Steph may feel a little bad about her almost semi-romantic thoughts about Anarchy while Tim was gone. I think that maybe her own guilt's getting the better over here, and a bit of embarrassment as well, to be honest with you. I mean, it was her phone that she allowed or, was not aware of, but that Anarchy used her phone to hack and cause damage to the team, and it's him. So I think there could be some embarrassment here and some regret on her that she's kind of laying off on Tim. But that being said, her whole thing was they were going to leave this life, and Tim doesn't look like he's going to do that now. So she may feel a bit of betrayal there. So there's a lot of stuff. All kidding aside about him getting some domestic bliss, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and I think it's just kind of boiling point for Stephanie. I mean, think about it. One of the things we said before was how unrealistic was it that she was just back on the team, So I think that does need to be some conflict here. So yeah, I'm okay with it, I guess.
I think in the previous episode I complained about it to begin with. I mean, I guess I'm glad the relationship is where it is right now because Steph doesn't need to, number one, be accused of something that she didn't do. Now, I will, of course, step back and revisit this statement if, of course, she did do it, but she's able to prove that she didn't because, someone hacked into her phone. So where's the trust? And number two, she wasn't given the benefit of the doubt. Number two, he's been lying to her. And even Kate Kane, again, she was saying that as the one who's usually the crappy person in the relationship, you're being the crappy person in the relationship. So,
Fair.
It's passionate because they were able to reconnect, but so much has changed. They have gone through so much. This is like, a loved one who is missing for a long time, and then they come back, and perhaps you moved on because you thought that person had passed away. I mean, your lives are different. It's hard to get back to that place. Stephanie is not the Stephanie from 2016, I guess. That's when it happened, all began. And Tim went through that traumatic event. So I think it's understandable that they don't have a strong relationship right now, and this is probably, unfortunately, because I like to ship people, this is probably where it should be for the safety of both of these individuals.
I would prefer the characters got along, but I mean, this was kind of bound to happen. With the fact that he specifically decided that he is going to stay on the team, and that was not what they were planning on doing before. I mean, and then the fact that he chose not to actually disclose that information to her right away when they got back together, that's a big, I mean, that was a red flag to begin with. So the other part of this is it almost feels like there wasn't a lot of focus on them getting back together and them exploring that aspect of their relationship just because this was just coming in the next issue. I think I complained last issue that the fact that they got back together, she was just brought back on the team, all happened so briefly over just a couple of pages and then off panel completely with that her coming back to the team. But all of that being said, it almost makes my argument not as worth it last issue, considering now they're having massive problems here in this issue. The other thing I want to discuss is this: I didn't realize or figure out what was going on. Tim has always been a guy who's obviously trying to figure out better ways of making everything run smoothly. But when they start laying out all the things that he is like currently involved in, working with the police, trying to bring the colony to work into work with them, working with the Bat family as usual, but then also like running a Bat ambulance service. Like there's some crazy stuff that he is doing that like. It seems like, yes, obviously there are people out there who can manage a ton of things, but it does feel like, especially when after hearing Jacob Kane's warning to Batwoman about how he's becoming too efficient, it's like foreshadowing something horrible is going to happen. I mean, I don't know what it is at this point. I don't know that. I feel like we all assumed Kate is going to step in and say something about all of the stuff that's going on, and that in turn is going to set off some sparks, and that's why basically Kate is going to have a major issue with the team because of it. And I'm not saying I want that to happen, but it feels like that is definitely the direction the story is going, because I don't think that Batman's going to sit there and say, you know what, Tim, you're doing an amazing job, you're doing like 15 more things than I'm normally doing, but hey, I want you to stop it all right now. Like, that's not the character of Batman. Batwoman, on the other hand, I could actually see her being the character to walk in and say, hey, don't you think your reach is a little bit too far here? Batman, I just don't see Batman having as big of a concern about that. That being said, outside of that, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on whether or not you think that, or where do you think this is headed? Like, at this point, what is your guess as to where this is heading with Tim having so many fingers in so many different pies right now? What do you think? Where do you think this is going?
I think, or I / want, maybe a better word to put. I think that Tim's gonna have a mental breakdown. He's just gonna. It's too much. It's,
too much.
There you go. And he's just going to lose it. And he's just going to flip out one day. They're going to find him strung out on no-dos and, like, just totally like, I can do a million things at once. Seriously, I do. And I think that this is going to be the segue for him and Stephanie. That Batman's going to tell Stephanie, you need to get him away from all this. He's too close. He's got to decompress. And him and Steph will go, away to college or on a beautiful backpacking tour of Asia
beautiful.
Or, something like that. But I think that that's what will happen. I think that he'll finally break. It'll be too much stress, and him and Steph will get shipped off, and they'll go do their backpacking tour or their 1 year at, the local community college. Or, skiing in the Alps, and then they'll come back rested and a strong couple, and they'll be together for the next 20 years.
Wow, so they're going on a couples retreat.
Of course. Sponsored by Wayne Enterprises.
Do you remember, have you ever seen Mad Men? I think, Dustin, you also have, haven't you? Do you remember the crazy end where Don Draper goes with the daughter of that into that crazy little camp thing? And then he has his vision.
Decides that's where he's going to stay.
Coca-Cola, yeah. Well, maybe, unless he it's all up to interpretation. Here's my scandalous thing for the day. Tim Drake is going to transition into a villain. Wah, wah, wah! Because
come on.
He's instead of his no-dose, because I don't even know what that means, he's going to have a mental breakdown, but be a villain.
You don't know what no-dose is?
So what's a no-dose?
No-dose is like caffeine pills.
Oh my gosh!
Like no doze, like no sleep, no sleepy.
Oh, no doze, like don't doze off kind of thing.
Yeah, no doze.
That's sick. Who would take those? And no,
it's extreme.
I used to take them. I used to take them when I was much younger.
I used to take them in college. Are you kidding me? That's how I stayed up and studied. Scotch and no doze.
Here's the thing.
It's not a great combination.
Between working 60 hours a week and going to school full time, definitely popping those.
Well, you didn't pop them when you were overseas, did you?
No,
okay, I want to be
I'm
sure.
I'm not talking about then. I'm talking about before I was in the military.
Okay. Yep.
I was working 2 different jobs full time, and I was going to school full time. I wanted money. I needed money to pay for school, and I basically slept like 3 minutes at a time. So
3 minutes.
He was Tim Drake.
I guess micro naps. There you
micro naps. Yep.
Yes. Villain. I dropped the V word
for like more than 6 months. Like a long-term villain.
No.
Or temporary villainous. A villainous streak.
I just think that this Kate Kane is a double blind. Is that what it's called? I think we're just being led astray because it's all about her. The focus is on her of like, oh, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? But it seems like she's playing it pretty straight, and all of these things that he's doing seem pretty shady. So I think he's gonna cast some shade on her, and she's gonna get in trouble. But it's him. I think that he's going down a bad way. He's going down the Cass Kane way. You know what I'm saying?
I think our two theories could come together and get married because.
Okay.
Seriously, we'll merge them into one super theory. He'll get villainous. Yep. He'll go villainous, right? And then after his villainous turn, he'll come back to reality because he's been taking too much no-dose. That's what made him go villainous.
Yeah.
Right? And then at the end, he'll repent for his villainous actions, and Bruce will realize that him and Stephanie need to go on that backpacking retreat in Asia together, sponsored by Wayne Enterprises. Bam. There you go. Super theory.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, guess we'll see, huh?
Here you go. Yeah.
And to any listener out there who's potentially wondering why sometimes these take 2 hours to get through, it's because of crazy ideas like this that need to be explained at great details.
Oh.
So, Detective Comics, I'm going to give a total of 3.5 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
I will give it a 3 out of 5 as well. Quick question. Why when Clayface visits Mudface, why does he have an orange jumper on? Is he, because this happened before, is he pretending to be an inmate in order to talk to her? And as a sub-question, why does he need like a private room to talk to her? Because that's more like a visitor from the outside going to talk to her. Did anyone catch that? He was wearing an orange jumpsuit, which you saw when Steph was in there. And that one makes sense because it's like, oh, he's an inmate. But here it's like he's a visiting family member. So I didn't know why he needed an orange jumpsuit.
That would only make sense if he was beginning to be an inmate.
Anyway, that was just something I wondered about. But yeah, 3 out of 5.
All right, so over on the website, Ian gave it 3.5. So that's going to give Detective Comics a total of 3 out of 5 Batarangs. That is all of our in-depth reviews. Let's jump over to Greater Gotham. December 6th, main TBU books, where he talked about Batman number 36. Nightwing number 34, The Fate of Bloodhaven is down to Nightwing, Blockbuster, and the runoffs as Raptor and Pigeon make their final moves. This is due by Paul. He gave it 1 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs down.
Abstain.
Yeah, it was no good. I give a thumbs down as well.
Secondary TBU books, Batman White Knight number 3. The Bat family must cope with tragic loss in the family as Joker continues to execute his plan to hold Batman accountable, all while the former Harley Quinn changes her identity. So by Dill, he gave it 4.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1. Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles deal with their power struggles within the Foot Clan and the League of Assassins. This is reviewed by Paul. He gave it 4 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Thumbs down. Joking.
Oh my
Abstain.
gosh.
He does that on purpose because he knows it's going to get you.
Yeah, especially the turtles. Didn't you do this last
know she
time?
likes-
You never read the turtle
Yes, he
stuff.
did.
I don't read the
Yeah,
turtle
it's so
stuff, no.
annoying. Thumbs up.
It's a shame.
I know.
The Shadow, Batman number 3. The Shadow and Batman strike back at the Secret Seven from their civilian identities as a shocking truth is revealed. This is by Paul. He gave it 4.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Abstain.
Bane Conquest number 8. Bane continues to lose control of his underground network and his hold on Cobra and seeks out a new member for his team. This is by David. He gave it 4 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Abstain.
Neutral.
Harley and Ivy meet Betty and Veronica number 3. After both teams experience a body switch with the other, both groups use their new situations to their advantage. This is by Jerry. He gave it 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give it a neutral.
Abstain.
Neutral.
Main DC Universe books, Justice League number 34. The League faces 3 threats at the same time, which puts Batman in a rare situation in having an error in judgment. This was by Ian. He gave it 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Thumbs up.
Abstain.
DC Holiday Special 2017 number 1, a collection of 12 holiday stories featuring a variety of characters, including many from the Batman universe. This was by Ian. He gave it 4.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Abstain, but it's on my shelf to because I always love these, so I can't wait to read it.
If anybody out there was potentially turned off by this based off of the Halloween one, go check it out. This one was way better than the Halloween one.
It's much better.
Yeah, the Christmas ones usually are generally.
All right, secondary DC Universe books, Bombshells United number 7, including digital chapters 13 through 14, the Bombshell versions of Bruce Wayne, Martha Wayne, Thomas Wayne, Batwoman, Catwoman, Renee Montoya, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Harper Row, Joker's daughter, Cullen Rowe, Elisa Yao, Kathleen Duquesne. I know I'm saying that wrong.
Duquesne.
There we go. I couldn't remember how to say it. And Jason Todd all appear in the issue. Green Arrow number 35, Black Canary and Kate Spencer appear in the issue. Kate Spencer, as you know, as some of you may know, Manhunter, formerly a member of the Birds of Prey. Injustice 2, number 15, digital chapters number 26 through 30. The Injustice version of Nightwing, Damian Wayne, appears in the issue. Moving over to December 13th, main TBU books, Detective Comics number 970, where I talked about. Batgirl and the Birds of Prey number 17, the vast majority of the female heroes of the DC Universe band together with a few villains to stop Patient Zero's plan of killing all the men in Gotham. This is by Jerry. He gave it 4 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Neutral.
Neutral until I do some further exploration.
Red Hood and the Outlaws, which means she wants you to tune into Back
That's
to the Oracle.
basically it.
That's what she means.
Yes.
Fair
I'll
enough.
plug it
Thank
for you. Red Hood and the Outlaws, number 17. With the help of the Suicide Squad, the Outlaws disable a futuristic generator of the colony that almost destroys the world. Despite the victory, Jason and Artemis are still unsure about the new personality of Bizarro. This is by Bill. He gave it 2.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
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 Secondary TBU books, Ragman number 3. As more of Rory's backstory is told, Ragman must battle against new demons, which leads to some assistance from Etrigan. This is by Corbin. He gave it 2 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Neutral.
Abstain.
Main DC Universe books, Titans number 18. The Titans, spearheaded by Donna Troy, defeat Troya and her avatars. This is by Tony. He gave it 3 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Abstain.
Thumbs up.
Justice League of America number 18, still without the help of Batman, the team takes down the threat of both Afterthought and Prometheus. This is by Matthew. He gave it 2.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs down.
Thumbs down. This book is going the wrong way.
Yikes. Abstain.
Suicide Squad number 31, the Red Wave monster moves closer to Earth as the Suicide Squad are reunited with an old teammate. This is by Paul. He gave it 1 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Abstain.
Abstain.
And then secondary DC Universe books, Gotham City Garage number 5, which includes digital chapters 9 through 10. The Gotham City Garage versions of Batman, Barbara Gordon, Catwoman, Harley Quinn, and Joker all appear in the issue. New Superman number 18, Batman, Batman of China, and Robin Bot all appear in the issue. And then finally, TBU trades and hardcovers from the past 2 weeks include Batman and Robin Adventures Volume 2 trade paperback, Batman Noir, the Court of Owls hardcover, Justice League Power Rangers hardcover, Justice League of America, the Detroit area omnibus hardcover, Suicide Squad Volume 7, the Dragon's Horde trade paperback, Teen Titans Go Volume 4, Smells Like a Teen Titans Spirit trade paperback, Batman Unwrapped, The Death of the Family hardcover, Batman Volume 4, The War of Jokes and Riddles trade paperback, Trinity Volume 1, Better Together trade paperback, Trinity Volume 2, Dead Space hardcover, Suicide Squad Volume 4, Earthlings on Fire trade paperback, and DC Universe by John Byrne hardcover. So that's everything that's released in the last 2 weeks. That does not include a Batgirl omnibus that is still not released. So please keep checking every week for the comic book roundup that we release on Saturday mornings, and then you'll finally know when the omnibus has released.
Finally.
That seems fair.
That being said, we're going to jump into our listener Q&As.
Boy, did you get a wrong number. Leave your message at the sound of the shriek. No, please, don't!
There's just a couple of comments we're going to cover here over on the comments. So the first comment we have comes from Ian.
Do you think that the Batman Eternal backstory, where Selina is the daughter of Rex Calabrese, and wasn't he the lion, and her time as a mafia don are still in continuity? Smiley emoticon. The Helena Wayne of the Batman annual seems to be Batwoman, not Huntress, though. I hope this year's annual will win an Eisner. Well, Tom King did win an Eisner for the last annual, right, with the little dog? Regarding who betrays the team in tech, I don't think that, quote, too obvious, quote, is going to stop Tynion. I love the guy. He's definitely my current favorite Bat writer, but he's never shied away from the obvious. Smiley emoticon. As for Steph, I think it's clear Tynion's not dismissing her issues. Solicits clearly say that she's going to have conflict in the next issue. I definitely don't think they're going to have Steph fight against the team, since they already did that plot at the end of the Victim Syndicate. Clayface was an Arkham to see Glory / Mudface. Oh, so this is answering my question from last issue. As we've seen that several times over the past year. Tech was a lot more controversial than I thought it would be. A lot of the issues really feel to me like setup for future story. Like Steph for joining the team, and the Ratcatcher thing is a mistake, but since I haven't been reading Mother Panic, I didn't notice. Aha! I didn't hate Doomsday Clock, but I didn't love it either. Aha! A little too much setup, not enough actually happening yet. I love Stella being so cranky about it. Stay the course, Stella. I also, agree that metal is vastly overrated. Woo! See, I'm not alone. Do we need a pause now, or do we want me to continue?
No, we can finish his comment.
Okay. Batman, Creature of the Night. Also didn't do anything for me. I love Superman, Secret Identity, but this didn't feel like a solid enough story to me yet. I'm happy to hear Dustin enjoyed the Super Sons annual. I smiled when I read Detective Chimp in it, thinking of him. Oh, Dustin! New Talent Showcase was really underbaked. They really shouldn't publish these, especially at $10. There are a lot of characters, sure, but the stories are just mediocre. Even, maybe especially, the Snyder Wonder Woman story. That thing didn't even have an ending. You should do a poll of top Rebirth series on the site. I think we have a serious problem in terms of editorial at this time, because we actually don't seem to have a Bat office anymore with the departure of Mark Doyle. You have Jamie Rich editing Batman and Chris Conroy editing Tech, and both of them editing various titles in the Bat books. I agree that the crossovers are good for sales, though, as Dustin wisely points out, just temporarily. But what you say is exactly what I'm talking about. Batman getting engaged should be the event that gets fans talking, that DC uses to get more sales. I think saying that Metal breathing life into the universe, blah, would require that we see impact on more than just sales. The only thing Metal, blah, is breathing life into story-wise is the Metal one-shots and crossovers. I was hoping that I could cut this down. Sad-faced emoticon.
Okay, so real quick.
Yes? Yes?
When I read your comment, I was trying to remember what I was talking about when I said Metal breathing life into the universe. And let me be clear, it wasn't that Metal is like some massive event that is line-wide doing wonders. It's not. It's doing great for DC Comics, the company, because they're selling a bunch of issues. It was just announced recently by Scott Snyder that all of the Metal stuff that's released up to this point is going back for third printings. Red Death, the Red Death one-shot's going back for a fourth printing. So let's just say they're making a bucket load of money off of the Metal stuff, which is great for DC Comics. That allows them to, let's just say, like we talked about earlier, maybe take a little bit more risks and do a little bit more miniseries that have, like, not as popular of a characters, and not sit there and say, well, we're not going to give these people a chance because we're hurting for funds. It honestly, during the New 52, it really did feel like they were hurting for money, and there was stuff being canceled all the time, and then all of a sudden they'd have some sort of thing where they'd be like, oh, we're trying a bunch of new things, but we don't let them actually have a chance to succeed, so forth and so on. I don't think that Metal is breathing life into the universe per se. I think it's just breathing life into the coffers of DC Comics, which can be a good thing in the long run for fans who want to see more miniseries, who want DC to take more risks. Because by having super successful events and saying, hey, look at all this stuff that DC has been able to do, it gives them the ability to take more risks and not worry as much about the sales of some of the lower selling comics per se. I mean, if you really like, let's say, Mother Panic, or like, for example, Gotham Academy, which a lot of people, we've had a lot of people who have said they really liked it. That book really wasn't selling that great, but they let it last probably a lot longer than they would have if it was releasing, let's say, 5 years ago. So I'm completely okay with an event like Metal happening and them selling a ton of issues of it and making a ton of money on it if it allows them to give some of the smaller stuff a fighting chance and actually be able to tell the story, whether it be a 6-issue miniseries or whatever. So I'm okay with that. Basically everything else you said, I don't have a whole lot of comments. Although, yes, Detective Chimp in Super Sons was the highlight of my month overall.
Ooh.
I think Metal is breathing life into the DC Comics universe. I think Metal is wonderful. I think it is so dripping with long-term continuity and history.
You're sick.
I had to say.
You're sick.
I know. I just think it's great, and I think that it's going to have long-term ramifications, but we're not going to see them now. I can't believe that there was another person in the world that agreed with Stella about Doomsday Clock.
Come on, you're not the only opinion around here.
Absolutely not, as we saw back on the Batman issue where I was left standing in the field, by myself. I don't know. I think Doomsday Clock is magnificent, and I don't know how you guys can't love it. So
wait a second. Why are we saying you guys?
You guys. I mean Ian. I mean Ian and Stella.
Okay. I was gonna say. Wait a second. Yeah. I actually liked the book.
Yeah. No. I mean Ian and Stella. Like, okay. I can't believe when Stella said that. I'm like, she doesn't like it. Maybe she's just pulling her leg. And then Ian agrees. I don't know. And it is Ian and Stella. Is that your pen name?
Ian and Stella. Oh, that I'm technically Ian Miller.
Mm-hmm. Maybe next time that's what your name will be at the beginning of the. I find that hard to believe because it's so amazing.
Someone's pulled the wool over your eyes. His first name is Scott and his last name is Snyder.
Doomsday Clock's not even by Snyder.
I know, but I think you've just been drinking that Kool-Aid.
I know, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I know, but the thing is, I think you're just led astray because of him.
I think there's a big difference there because I personally don't like everything Snyder does, but I think Doomsday Clock is great. I think Jeff Johns has a very good take on the overall universe.
I agree with that.
Snyder, I think, can tell good stories, but I think his stories can be attributed to a variety of different characters if you really take a step back and look at it. Jeff Johns gets the entire universe. And I say that knowing that Snyder's doing a story within the entire DC universe right now, and I don't have a ton of major issues with it. There's a new issue coming out while you're listening to this. There's going to be a new issue of Dark Knight's Metal that's going to be coming out, and then Hawkman Found is right around the corner too, which is another part of the Metal run. But yeah, I mean, we'll see, I guess, for now. All right. Let's keep going, because we got another big one from Brett, who tends to always send us in some really long ones. A big one. So, Brett, buddy, I don't know. You're killing us, man. You are absolutely killing us. I know that you did make a comment. Actually, yeah, it probably it's a little longer. Maybe there's just more topics that he covers. But we'll say this, okay? You thank you for at least acknowledging the fact that we have to cut down the comments and that you're okay with it. We appreciate that. He specifically goes on to say that he understands that we have to cut down, but we're going to go through the majority of it. The vast majority of the stuff that you're talking about is not stuff that we're going to have to ask questions, so we're just going to jump into it, and we'll stop right after you get through your points. But Stella, go ahead.
That's the problem. There's always so much to talk about. It's hard to cut down when. The books are pretty good, the reviews and podcasters have good questions, and the storylines are flowing. Batman Annual 2. He will get an Eisner for it. I'd bet a Pat's cheese steak on that. However, I believe it was Chris in the comments below that sent me to Gotham by Geek to listen to the interview by Tom King, which you should check out if you haven't. I feel like he implied some other cool things in his discussion. He never came out and said this, but it seemed like he hinted at it to me. And these are the things that he hinted at. Number 1, Cass wasn't in the picture for a reason at the end of the issue. Why, he didn't elaborate, but he slid that comment in the discussion. Number 2, he implied that this story may not be taking place on our Earth 1, in parentheses, Prime. Oh! Yeah, whatever you want to call it, Earth. Maybe the story even switches from our Earth in the beginning to another Earth at the end. So this future isn't canon, in my opinion.
Earth 2.
I agree. Wow, that was breathy. I agree on Detective. I think it will also be obvious. To me, Doomsday Clock was amazing. Oh, Pisha! I don't mind the setup. We've waited this long for answers already, so I can wait longer. And I love Watchmen, so I'm cool with it being a continuation of the story. The art was mega level good, too. My only hate on it is having to wait on the next issue. I'm with Ed on Creature of the Night. It just didn't do it for me. Talent Showcase was meh, and yes, the Wonder Woman story just never ended. I'm down with a poll of top Rebirth. There, you better get on it, Dustin. 2 people, that's a crowd.
Move it.
I guess I got to start looking for a plug-in to do polls.
Well, you know where you can do it.
Do it on Twitter.
You can do it on the Twitter. You have a daily poll. You tried that once before, didn't you?
On the Twitter.
On the Twitter, yeah.
I did.
Did not turn out
well?
well?
Not a lot of people did it, but we got responses. But anyway, keep going.
The people need incentives, you know. It seems like editorial is a problem. And people who read a ton of comics are the ones that see the continuity issues, like a Ratcatcher, for example, or a V, if you will. But if you don't read everything, then you don't notice. In a perfect world, the story would be fantastic with no continuity issues, but it seems like that's impossible. Which would you rather, here's a nice little game, better story with okay continuity or flawless continuity with okay story? I think we'd all go with better story.
Let's just stop there. We'll stop it there. Specifically, I would prefer if it was great continuity and good story. Like there's a middle ground. I think there's a middle ground between these. Like saying better story with okay continuity or flawless continuity with okay. I think there's a middle ground, which is what about a good continuity with good story? I mean, like I'd be fine with that. I don't think that you should have to. I don't think one suffers because of the other either. I mean, honestly, there's no reason that you can't have great continuity and great story. There's no reason you can't. It's just
that's not what he's asking.
I don't care if that's what he's asking. That's what I'm answering.
My answer is definitively when we went through the DCU bubble continuities. I proclaimed and will proclaim continuity is dead. I don't give me a great story.
Blasphemy.
I know, no doubt.
I wish all the continuity worked, but I want the great story, period. Like, if you tell me a great story, it's the best Batman story I've ever seen, but in this story, there's some continuity errors, I don't care. Give me the great story. I'm just give me the great story. But the reality is, there's always problems in comics continuity. They're fun to point out.
They're fun to
when they're
point
happening
out.
at the same time in
Give
books.
me a break.
Well, but I mean, like, I think there's difference
This
between
isn't
like
an Easter egg
continuity
hunt.
mistakes in the same story.
Oh,
I mean,
Edward.
I don't mind if it conflicts something that happened 10 years ago. That's all.
Okay.
I just don't.
Okay. I think if continuity is like really messing with the story, then it's a problem. For example, I think the most recent for me, anyways, because I don't like to comment on continuity unless it's very obvious, because I think we do have a problem with fans like. I think the term is bat-splaining, which, Dustin did that to me just this night. And, you have to be careful because we don't want to be obnoxious like that. The only time I do it is with Batgirl because I feel a level of... I've got some wisdom and knowledge in that one, right? I don't want to step on any toes, but, I'm going to tell you how I see it. So the most recent one was just a really weird with the Summer of Lies business and just Batgirl... being Batgirl, I guess, right away when she got to Gotham, which was assuming that she was Batgirl in Chicago. It was super strange. But just some weird stuff like that. But yeah, no, I would obviously go for a good story, right? But sometimes continuity, I think, can drag it down if it's very obvious and it's clearly not working together with the other books. So, there you go.
All right, and then our final comment comes from Jessica.
I only managed to listen to this after I got home, but thanks for the wishes, Ed. Oh, look, Ed, you have a fan. It's your first one. Not only does CCXP have...
It's just being polite. Come on now.
Not only does CCXP have the world's biggest attendance, it also has the biggest artist alley. And talking about it, while Takara was sketching a cast for me, Maiolo, who is the colors for Chang, came to talk to him for a while. I asked Takara if he would be coming back to Detective. He's been invited, but he's taking a breather. And Maiolo took the cue and started a conversation with Takara about how he's currently overworked and, in his words, quote, with Nightwing now being twice a month, I'm so effed, quote. From that, I guess we can assume DC considered making it a monthly title, but ended up keeping it bi-monthly for now, which might explain why Chang is alternating issues with other artists. Also, Doomsday and Creature are my babies, and I'll protect them with my life! Joking aside, I can see how they are love it or hate it issues, and it was quite enjoyable to hear you guys giving such radically opposite views.
Well, if you love that, you're going to love this episode.
I know.
Yes, exactly. But I think, honestly, a lot of people tend to like when we clash on our views of things more than when we all agree. I mean, quite honestly. The one thing that I think is interesting about this comment about the Nightwing, basically it seems as if, yes, DC considered making a monthly title. The sales are not crazy amazing. I mean, they're not bad. I think it's sitting at like 30K per issue at this point.
Middle of the road.
So it's middle of the road. That's basically where it would have been New 52. That's where it was back before New 52. So it's like basically where it is, but there is still 2 issues a month, so it's still selling 60K. So that's probably why they kept it at 2 per month. But I do see the next time they start slashing down some of these books or coming out with new books to replace some of them, I do think that Nightwing and Harley Quinn are probably the next books along with Suicide Squad. And no, I think that Justice League of America, as much as I think it should be a monthly, I think it'll keep it every twice a month just because it can rotate with Justice League, and that way there's always a Justice League book. But I feel like the creative team needs to change on that book, or they need to change something in that book. But Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, Nightwing, those are the books I foresee going to monthly if they choose to make more books monthly in the future, which I'm guessing if that happens, it's not going to be until probably like late summer when that happens. So
That probably makes sense. I mean, I don't know. Nightwing, like you thumbs downed it. I'm not even reading it anymore.
Well, let's be clear. We thumbs down it, but that was the last issue of Tim Seeley's run, and there's been some issues with the overuse of the character Raptor and the incorporation of Blockbuster into the series, so...
And now and to think that he's all the way back then, and that he may have had, I mean, are we to assume that he had a relationship with Mary? And that Dick is named after him?
Yes, or he had a relationship in his mind alone. But yes, But I actually am looking forward to what Sam Humphries and Bernard Chang are going to be doing on the series. I know Phil Jimenez is going to be doing the alternating work for at least the first couple of months. So,
And I'm going to try again.
Yeah.
With
I'm
You
definitely
better.
like I read all this stuff, so it doesn't matter. But I'm looking forward to this way more than I've been looking forward to Nightwing for at least the last couple months. So, all right. That being said, that is all of our comments. I was about to read off all the names for our Patreon supporters.
Let's do it.
But if you have been paying attention to the world of Patreon,
What happened?
crowdsourcing things in general, there have been some major concerns with Patreon over the last couple of weeks due to some crazy issues with them deciding to mess around with fees and charge fees to other people and things like that. All of that being said, they have decided after announcing it at the beginning of the month and then changing it that they are not actually changing anything in going forward. So if you are supporting us on Patreon, no need to fear. Nothing is changing. You're not going to get charged any fees or anything else in the future. So just be aware that if you have heard something, nothing's happening at this point. Real quick, our supporters that I need to specifically thank for the past month. I want to thank Stephanie, Ian, Robert, Darren, No Deuces, Jerry, Lisa, Robert, and Jim, who are all supporting at the higher levels. Everybody else who's supporting, thank you very much. Now, before I continue on, I want to talk real quickly about the holiday giveaway. So basically, the gist of this is that we have a number of prizes. There's going to be a total of 4 different prize packs that we're going to be giving away. Basically, the way it works is if you supported us in the month of November or you support us in the month of December, so you'd have to be supporting us before January 1st in order for this to actually work. Any dollar level that you support at, whether it be $1, $5, $10, the $25 levels, any of those that you are supporting at, the dollar amount that you get that many entries into the giveaway. So if you support at the $10 level for 2 months, you're going to get 20 entries into the giveaway. If you support $5 for just the month of December, you're going to get 5 entries into the month of December, so forth and so on. So if you do all of this, that's the way it'll work. You'll get that many entries. There's a couple of different prize packages. They're broken up in a slightly strange way because of certain sponsors that we had for these prizes. I posted up a picture at the beginning of the month on Twitter, but I don't know if everybody saw it. I'm going to repost it online, probably on Twitter again, but I'm letting you guys know who's listening to this. If you're looking at the picture, I'll have it on Twitter. You can search for it. I'm going to try to do a post, but I can't make any promises on the post. Basically, we have one prize package is sponsored by Jada Toys, which is a toy company that makes metal die-cast figures. You'll get a 20-pack of die-cast DC figurines, as well as a display case to display them in. Then there's another prize package that was sponsored by Downtown Books, which is going to include the official superhero cookbook, which includes DC-related cookie cutters, and then 2 other books that are like activity-based books. There is another prize package that includes Wonder Woman on Blu-ray, Justice League The New Frontier on Blu-ray, Batman vs. Two-Face, Batman and Harley Quinn, as well as 2 Funko Pop figures from the Legion of Collectors subscription service, Bane from the Villains box and Mr. Freeze from the Batman the Animated Series box. There's also a Lego pack that includes a crazy $250 Lego classic TV series Batcave. It includes that, Batgirl's Secret Bunker from DC Superhero Girls, the Nightcrawler Tunnel Attack set from Justice League, as well as 4 Brickhead figures from the Lego Batman movie, and the Lego Batman Hallmark keepsake ornament. All of that was donated by the Buried Treasure Store. And then there's a group of posters that was donated by Rob from Rob and Everyone Loves the Drake. It's a huge set of posters from the Justice League movie that was given away as a promotional thing from AT&T. That will be included along with 3 poly bags from the Lego Batman movie. So there's 4 different prize packs. Also, that poster one also has another Downtown Books one called My First DC Dictionary. So tons of prizes. The point is, if you supported any of the levels between now and January 1st, and if you supported in the past, you have multiple entries. And then just make sure that we have your address on file on Patreon, and then your address That way we can mail you your prize if you win, then so forth and so on. So if you are interested in winning any of these prizes, be sure to support us on Patreon. Obviously, your support helps us. These prizes were donated specifically for this giveaway to raise funds for the site. So if you are interested, be sure to support us on Patreon, and that's basically all you have to do to enter in to win one of the 4 contest prize packages. So, that all being said, if you have no desire to donate money or you have no desire to win any of these prizes and you are interested in just donating your time or skills to the website, we are specifically looking for video editors, comic book reviewers. If you have any desire to write original content like character spotlights on different back characters or reviews of old comics from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, be sure to email me at tbu@thebatmanuniverse.net and we'll find you a position somewhere on the site. We're always looking for original content, and the video editing will come in handy with a project that we're hoping to do in the very near future. Outside of that, be sure to head over to the website for all the latest news related to movies, merchandise, TV, video games, and of course the comics. Also be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for all the latest news and videos from the Batman universe. Be sure to check out all the other podcasts. You're listening to this probably right when we release it on Friday, but over the course of the 2 weeks, the week before Christmas and the week of Christmas, we basically have a new podcast releasing every day of the week except for Christmas Day for 2 weeks straight. So there's plenty of content, whether it be Battle the Oracle, Robin Everyone Loves the Drake, Bruce Wayne's World, Bat Fans. There's a new commentary, Gotham Chronicle, their mid-season finale, which I happen to guest on. So be sure to check out all of that content. There's tons of it out there. So with that is everything for this episode. Be sure to leave your comments on the post on the website for the next episode so we can talk about those. With that is everything. This is Dustin.
This is Ed.
And this is Nadine.
And you have been listening to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.